Welcome to the Criminal Defense Show. I'm your host, Kelly Carpenter. Today, we're going to dive into the exciting world of a very interesting criminal defense attorney, Mr. David Zwanetz. He is a partner at Shapiro, Zwanetz and Associates in Columbia, Maryland. David specializes in criminal defense, DUI, traffic, and juvenile law. He is a father, a husband, and a combat sports enthusiast. Welcome, David.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We're excited to have you. I wanted to ask you about your law practice, because I'm sure people want to run down on the history of how that started and how your practice operates.
Okay, so history. It's a great history. I have always wanted to do defense work. And in 1998, I was a sophomore in high school. I was at the gym where I worked out. And there was a guy at the gym who I knew to be a really good defense attorney in our area. I knew that because he talked to everybody in the gym, was real well known, really charismatic. So I went up to him and told him that I wanted to become a defense attorney someday. And I remember he was doing tricep pull downs and he said something to the effect of, well, when you get through this whole process, give me a call. And as goofy as that sounds, just that little push was something I had in my mind the whole time as what I was planning on doing. So graduated college, I went to law school, and I cold called him. This was many, many years later, 97 to 2005. No communication, one comment at a gym. And I relayed to him the story and basically said, like, I know you're a man of your word. Are you going to give me a shot? And he said something like, we're not hiring right now. Call me if you pass the bar. So I hung up and I felt I'm still in this. Okay. So I took the bar, passed the bar, called him again. And he brought me in, and boom, from 2005 on, I've been with the same partner, mentor, close friend. I came in at a very unique time. And I can explain, I think it does parlay well into what you do. I came into the business of law in 2005. And if we reminisce back to 2005, the internet was just kicking off. Internet marketing was just kicking off. I mean, not everybody even had a website. My partner will tell you, if he watches this, it's true. He was still marketing in the phone book for thousands and thousands of dollars. Like, it was like a knife in my heart to hear that. You're in the phone book. Like, I sit on the phone book goes from my doorstep to the recycling bin without ever being opened. I mean, I've torn pages off and used them for things. I've never once opened a phone book that I can recall. And I'm 41.
Yeah.
So anyway, I decided that because usually the business of law is about the cases that you bring in. Your book of business is what we do as lawyers. We're salesmen of our services. Well, a brand new lawyer typically doesn't have that, especially in a litigation type business, because somebody gets jammed with a criminal offense, they're going to call somebody quickly. It's not like they are mulling over their desire to get a will, and they'll call their mom and say, "Mom, I need a will. Who'd you do for your will?" And she says, "I don't know. Let me call grandma." And then it goes that way. It's like, boom, I'm jammed up with a crime and I go to something quickly. So, man, that's going to go to guys like Jason Shapiro. He's been in the game for 15 years. So what did I do? I decided to try to grow our internet business. I looked at our website. Our website at that time, the first website we ever had honestly like a beach theme, a person in a beach chair. It was a wild
thing.
It was a thematic mess up. It was early on. People were making mistakes. So I also started doing social media, and I started doing YouTube videos. They were real crazy. I mean, I was a young guy, real defense oriented, real aggressive, to try to build my book. That was my version of building my book of business. Yes. So I would be in charge of usually the issues relating to the internet and the marketing. Eventually it had to be outsourced, obviously. No lawyer that has a huge campaign can operate it on their own anymore.
Yeah. And it's a full-time job.
Oh, no doubt. A full-time job for a team, not even just one person.
Yeah. Well, as the person in charge of the marketing, I'm curious, what has worked well for you guys? What's been successful as far as the marketing goes?
I can say that there's no magic sauce, really. It's just longevity. I mean, being very consistent with all the things that we try to do is the key to, I believe, the current mode of success on Google. What works for us is making sure that our marketing, even though it's designed to have mass appeal, is never, ever, ever outside of our real core value and what we truly know we can deliver. Because it's dangerous in the criminal defense world to put things out that aren't authentic. You will lose credibility with yourself, which then will cause you to lose credibility with everyone else.
That's fantastic. And I think what you said about the core value is a really important point, because maybe, I'm guessing, not a lot of firms think that deeply about it. They just think, oh, well, we can say we're aggressive. We can talk about our experience. But I think it does say something to really tap into what are you about? What do you value ahead of everything else?
Yeah.
Identify that so you can tie it in with your branding, with your messaging. I think that's so
great
great.
Way to put it. Kelly, that's beautiful. What do you value? What did you say? What do you value more than you value everything else? I mean, that should be, before you put anything on the internet or even walk out the door to go do what you do at your business, you should know that, right?
Yeah. They set the whole trajectory of your firm. You've got to spend some time thinking about those things if you want to be successful and if you want to feel good about what you're doing. And I think what's really cool about you is that authenticity, that value permeates everything you do. It permeates how you relate to your clients, how you deal with people in your industry, with prosecutors, with judges.
Right. Because we have to believe. We're attorneys. We're our business is to convince other people around us, judges, juries, state's attorneys, police, in what we're saying. And that's not going to come through if you're inauthentic about your approach. And I can tell you that there are times when I know I could have been more lucrative from a business sense if I sacrificed something I truly believe in, but I will not do that.
And I think with you have an interesting start, and it involves a skateboard. And I really love this story, and I hope you'll tell us about it because it ties into why you became a lawyer and how deeply rooted this passion of yours is and how early it started.
When I was 14 years old, I was really just like a punk kid, a normal kid, always just consistently loved fighting. I used to always I loved stuff like that. I'm little, so probably like a Napoleonic complex type thing, just kind of a, I wouldn't hesitate to get into trouble, but nothing harmful. I would never like destroy something or be rude to my elders or anything like that. So we're skateboarding at a place called the Lakefront. It's an amazing skateboard environment pre-skate parks. Now there's skate parks everywhere. When I was a kid, you didn't have ramps, you didn't have steps, you didn't have all these things. So we're skateboarding there and a cop comes and tells us to leave. And somebody I was with said something rude to him. I mean, we also used to listen to NWA and we were indoctrinated very early from all this we grew up in the golden age of hip hop. So we were listening to all this music in our ears about screw the police. And it was a much more vicious word than that. So it was something, just a little white boy punk kid says something to a cop that I know was overboard. But what does the cop do? Ultimately, after shaking us down and being rude to us, he snaps our skateboards, just breaks them in half. So when I came home and told my father this, he was like, "They broke your skateboard? Come on, man. You can't say stuff like that to the police." I mean, really, that was his attitude, because I'm telling you, in his neighborhood, that could have ended up with a real beating. Mm-hmm. So he just said, something in passing, like, the only way to do this is to get educated, son. The only way to do this is to get a degree and fight that way. Try to stop it. Don't just complain about it, because you guys did say something totally smart to a person who had a gun, a taser, a badge, can do whatever they want. They could have arrested you. They didn't. They just broke your stuff. And it just planted a little seed in me. Like, could I do this? It seems like I could. Why not? That's the beginning of it. But that incident honestly left a really tough scar even though it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of what you read about, the people actually getting really abused by the police, it bothered me forever. And it bothered me enough that it was always a little extra motivation. Like, I'm going to come back someday and see this man when I'm far more educated than him and I have far more control than him. And that he would never be able to do that again, ever, ever, ever. That's kind of how I felt about it. And that carried me all the way through.
Do you feel that ever come full circle now in your career?
No, because it was a foolish way of thinking. I don't think that I was right. I was 14. It was my 14-year-old mind. If I told you on a podcast, grown man, beautiful wife, beautiful kids, house, the cars, the whole nine, that I was still bent out of shape about something that happened when I was 14, you should send me somewhere. Right?
Yeah, totally. I want to talk about your fighting background. You're a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right?
Yes, a legit brown belt in Jiu Jitsu.
That's amazing. How do you think that practice has shaped you?
So Jiu Jitsu allows you to be completely free of mind. And that moment when you're getting beat up by another person, when you clap hands and you're looking at another guy, typically same size, same skill level, and you're going to fight. And the mission is to get the other man to give up. That's how you have to finish it. You either give up or something will break or you'll go unconscious. You're free for a second. So that shaped me in respect to having this outlet, which allows me to sustain longer periods of misery than most people. Also, there is nothing that is going to happen to me, period, involving my work life that is worse than what has happened to me physically in this environment. Nothing. Yeah. So that's good. That's good for everybody needs that. I don't know what it could be, fishing or surfing or whatever it is. Jiu-jitsu is that for me, and it has unequivocally shaped me as a human being. And remember, I'm a brown belt in a sport where at a point in my sport, I was second in the world ranked, and that was in 2010, and it's 2021. I'm still not a black belt. So this pursuit is a really long one. So then the person has to make a decision. Okay, what do I have to give up to get to the next level? What happens to the person that gives up alcohol, that gives up smoking, that gives up Netflix, and only uses their time to attain their goal? What happens to that person? They better themselves, for sure. For sure. All the sacrifices that you think are terrible are actually good for you. Really good for you. And then what happens is that by you changing your environment, it's contagious. It spreads. If you have that discipline, which I do have, my son has that. He sees it in me. I'm embodying health. I'm embodying discipline. So I can change myself by better my environment. I think the same thing is at work. I mean, we can conduct ourselves in a fashion that we truly believe to be in conformance with our core value. And that will expand our hold in the market in a way that we can live with, we can really stand behind. And it's all starting in the middle, not from the outside in.
What advice do you have? This is just a general question. We've obviously covered a lot of ground, but is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want people to know? Specifically, lawyers who are thinking about, branding themselves, growing their practice, and doing better. What advice would you pass on to them?
To attempt to be absolutely transparent about the things you can track analytically. Just sit down with a pen and paper and really see what you're worth. Look at it. Don't hide from it. What you're bringing in versus the hours you're putting in. And that will give you a real gauge of where you stand. And as hard as that is to do, it's a necessary requirement to be good at anything, is to be open about the things you can analyze, the real stats. Even though you reach a certain point in a job, if you're not constantly training your environment to be more streamlined, your business to be better, more streamlined, and your own personal performance to be better, then you're going to get washed up.
Always be improving.
Yeah. You're either walking forward or you're going backwards. There's probably not a lot of standing still. And if you do stand still, the people that are coming forward are coming past you. I have more advice in respect to the way people conduct their business from not a financial standpoint, but just the bedside manner, the way they communicate with their clients, how they communicate with their clients, how often they communicate with their clients than I would about anything else, because I've learned so much about that. I know exactly what people want. What people really need, if you could find a way in your business to communicate with every client every day, just for a minute, it's not efficient. It's not practical. It's not efficient. It's not possible. But if you could, you have the perfect practice, because that's what everybody wants. Today I had some free time. I just called a number of my clients and said, hey, I'm just checking in with you. We have nothing new going on. You have everything, but I bet you have some questions swirling around. It's Friday night. Is there anything I can tell you that will help you have a better weekend? And they were like, yeah, okay. And they asked me some things that were on their mind. We got off the phone. No harm, no foul.
And why should attorneys do that? I want to hit that point home. Why that's an important thing to do, even though it takes some time. How does that come back to you?
If you help them understand that you're fighting for them, they'll do what you need them to do. They'll help you help them. And that's more valuable. That's a referral from that person is more valuable than anything, especially in conjunction with an amazing marketing team. Because if Tom tells Susie to call Dave Zwanetz, they're not just how are they going to find me? They have to go to Google. So it goes from word of mouth to the computer. The computer tells them how to get to me. And that's what you do for us, is you make sure that we're visible to anyone who's, in the periphery of our areas of practice.
Well, David, it's been so great talking with you today. Thank you for doing this with us. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was an awesome time. A lot of fun, great questions, great opportunity for me to have a good conversation. I'm locked up like a cage with COVID, so I don't have a chance to flex my intellectual and vocal muscles. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Of course. And where can people go to find out more about you?
SZA Firm would be the number one spot. That's our website. Podcast is Legal Rights Radio. Type in Shapiro Zwanetz on Google, and it's ZWANETZ is my last name. If you want to know about my jiu-jitsu, look at crazy88mma.com. That's that.
Look him up, guys. You won't regret it.
Yep.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Well, if you found today's episode valuable, please share it with your circle. You can also check out our show notes over at scorpion.co. That's scorpion.co without the M. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.